Danny White fires back after Donde Plowman fires back after the lawsuit. What did you make of Danny White having to get involved from a public perspective, Caleb?
He basically called the NCAA gigantic hypocrites. He went more nuclear on them than Donde Plowman did. And I'm going to just read a couple of quotes from what Danny White said. Let's you know what, Dave? I kind of want to parse this each spot because it's so crazy and it's so accurate, and he nailed them. So let's just start with the first one.
You give me. How about this? Let's do this. You give me one. I give you my response. You respond, and then we'll bounce through these. I like it.
Okay, you remember when the NCAA said 2 days ago, we generally do not comment on investigations in their response. Remember when they said that?
Except when we get sued. Yes, I remember that.
Yes. Danny White comes yesterday, and he goes, quote, the NCAA generally does not comment on infraction cases. And he highlighted that in bold. And then he said, because there is a rule against it. However, that has not stopped them in the past from leaking information to the media as they did this week about us. He's going outright and saying they're trying to publicly humiliate Tennessee, isn't he? And he's saying they're violating the protocol to do it.
Okay, and I'm going to read it a step further. This is the NCAA that's concerned they don't have a leg to stand on legally. That's my immediate impression. So move forward. What's the next one?
All right. Their actions made this ill-conceived investigation public and forced us to defend ourselves. It is clear that the NCAA staff does not understand what is happening at the campus level all over the country in the NIL space.
What they're implying there is as dastardly as they come, because they are implying a leak at the uppermost levels of the NCAA. If this was a guy that was lower on the chain that leaked this to Pat 40, that would be one thing. But they're saying this is upper level leaking, which is an orchestrated effort to make an example out of Tennessee. I don't know why, but that's what that means right there. That is exactly what he is implying. So let's get to the next comment. I want to remind you, Rick Terry Jewelry Design, they want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals? A Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. What else do you got for me there, my man Caleb?
All right, now this is a big one that I'm reading right here. This is Danny White still speaking, guys. Quote, after reviewing thousands of Tennessee coach and personnel phone records, NCAA investigators didn't find a single NIL violation. So they moved the goalpost to fit a predetermined outcome. They are stating that the nebulous, contradictory NIL guidelines written by the NCAA, not the membership, don't matter, and applying the old booster bylaws to collectives.
Right. So they are changing a collective into a booster so that it fits their drive and what they're trying to do. Not until this week have we even really compared the two. To me, a collective was a businessman that had some interest in the school and wanted to help out. But ultimately, what did he care about? A profit. A booster is somebody that either wants to help his university, its athletic department, or wants to essentially, what do they call it, whitewash maybe a reputation just to get his name out there. This is different from somebody that runs a collective. At least it should be. Now, in fairness to the NCAA stance, Aspire's a booster, right? They're not sending kids to any other school. So I'm going to call a little bit of shenanigans on that comment, but I see where he's coming from. What's next?
Yeah, the thing I wanted to add, the thing with me was the statement before where he said that according to Danny White, they found nothing that that Tennessee did that violated rules in place at the time. So that's why they moved the goalpost to retroactively go at Tennessee. He's saying that they had.
Well, no, by moving the goalpost, he's talking about turning collectives into boosters.
Yes, that's true. You're right. Which he's saying they're working backwards from wanting to catch Tennessee. Is what he's claiming.
He is, and it's dastardly. Again, I don't know why I use that word twice. I never use that word. But here's the issue, guys, on the message board, and tell me if you think I'm wrong, is they're allowed to go through all of this stuff, and instead of addressing it at the time, I basically just figured out this very second why Tennessee was in the crosshairs, literally. So I'm going to share it with you, Caleb, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, and God knows you've never been afraid to do so. I believe Tennessee's in the crosshairs. Why? because the NCAA just got open books on them. They want to find a way to put guardrails on NIL. They know Tennessee has had contact with Nico and other players in NIL. They know all of those things happen. So this is the easy way. In sales, they call it low-hanging fruit. If you've got a buddy that owns a business and he needs to advertise, it's low-hanging fruit. So instead of digging into another program, they already have that information. Boom, bango. I've wondered why Tennessee was the school they would go after all week. That's why, because they already have stacks of info that you can twist and turn by saying a collective is a booster, and you got Tennessee in their minds dead to rights. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, that makes the most sense. They already had a bunch of information and they could have gone at him. But as Danny White's about to point out, and this is the big one too, Danny White says if this is the case, which is if we're going to make collectives count as boosters now, then 100% of the major programs in college athletics have significant violations. This is obviously silly and not productive, and is blaming the membership when they are challenged.
Well, he is right. And that comment came across with some people, some very esteemed people that I know we think a lot of. And I don't call out other people in the media, but I'm talking about guys that write for big time publications saying that you're using everybody else's doing this card. But they are. I mean, this is like getting a, can I just be honest with you, on the drive from Chattanooga to Knoxville early this morning, Dave Hooker may have gotten a speeding ticket. Okay. But my argument wasn't at the time, everybody's driving cars. I mean, but everybody is driving cars. So that's the difference to me in what Danny White is trying to point out. Everybody really is doing it, Caleb. It's not a situation with Albert Means where maybe some people are paying for players and some people aren't. This is standard operating procedure in this era of NIL. So no, yes, everybody. That's analogous to saying everybody is using the forward pass, Caleb.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. I mean, it's basically saying that the NCAA is arbitrarily determining something's a rule that makes no sense, and then they're specifically coming at Tennessee when everybody else is doing it. But this isn't really even a rule. You are arbitrarily applying something. If you know, I agree. And the next thing he says, and again, he is going way out at him. He says, quote, "We need to be spending our time and energy on solutions to better organize college athletics in the NIL era, something that NCAA leadership failed to do back in 2021. Student athletes, prospective student athletes, coaches, and administrators across the country deserve better, and I refuse to allow the NCAA to irrationally use Tennessee as an example for their own agenda." That was how he finished it.
Preach. Preach, brother. I love it. Those were 4 points brought to you by 4 Downs. 4 Downs, I got to remind you, man, they are fantastic at Dynasty Spas because they got 4 seasons covered. The best spas, Dynasty Pools and Spas, as their brand new showroom open in Athens with the best hot tubs and spas on the market, delivery. They've got that, and amazing discounts for first responders. We're going to talk about Nico here in just a minute. But again, Dynasty Pools and Spas, you can order their chemicals, no fillers, best. Again, local East Tennessee. So support local, dynastypoolsandspas.com. Did you see the video circulating where the radio guy was having trouble pronouncing Nico's name? And God knows I've done that. But did you see the video about them struggling to pronounce his name, and Pat Forty was on there too? And I'm curious how that struck you.
No, I did not see that. I need to watch that.
I don't want to all out say that it was kind of racist, but it was kind of racist. It was a little racist because we're past a point where, listen, I can make a mistake and I can say Nico Imalava and make an honest mistake. I've done it a lot. And I don't think that was the case here. I think they were having fun with a name that sounded different. So would it have been okay with Shamiqua Holdsclaw to say, oh, that Shamique or Shamiqua or however they pronounce it now? That wouldn't have been right, would it?
No, that wouldn't have been right at all. That wouldn't
No.
have been right at all.
Okay, now you have another point on Danny White that I want to get to. 4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. This is the most interesting point I thought of what Danny White had to say. 60 seconds, Dynasty Pools and Spas right there in Athens, Tennessee. Having the best spas made right here in the United States of America in your backyard. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Their showroom is open in Athens right off the interstate. You can stop by and check out the best hot tubs and spas in the market. And then delivery, yes, they can do that to Knoxville or Chattanooga. They've got complete support, spa cover, and chemicals to keep your spa bubbling at its best. They also have pool chemicals as well. Dynasty Pools and Spas, amazing discounts for first responders, military, and even some blemish models that can save you a ton, and no one will ever notice. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Go to dynastypoolsandspas.com or stop by that showroom in Athens. dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Okay, so 4th down is Danny White said what?
No, this is beyond the 4 downs now. This is my take on just the whole NCAA and what's happening, what Danny White's really saying, because I want to really break this down for you guys. And a lot of the hate for the NCAA, and Dave, you've been covering the college football for years, and you know this. A lot of the time, the hate for the NCAA is traditionally mob mentality. I hate them, but I can't explain why, right? There's been a lot of that over history. Like, people will complain, and then you sit them down and you ask them, well, what do you think they should fix? And then they can't give you anything, right? That's traditionally the hate for the NCAA, isn't it?
Yes.
Mob mentality. That's what they're trying to cash in on here. They're trying to cash in on saying, we have a lot of people on our show and everywhere else that, and you've heard it, Dave, that say NIL needs to be regulated. NIL needs to be this. NIL needs to be that. I think you and I have been consistent. They shouldn't touch NIL. It shouldn't be regulated at all, right? They should be allowed to make whatever they can make on the open market, period, in a story.
Go for it.
Like, yes, but you agree that a lot of fans want the Wild Wild West to be contained. The NCAA is trying to make you think that you are a hypocrite for getting mad at them for coming at Tennessee when you also think NIL should be regulated. Now, if you think NIL should be regulated, I totally disagree with you. But you're not a hypocrite, because what they want you to think is that this is against the backdrop of the idea that they haven't changed rules and retroactively applied them consistently since, what is it, Dave? Like, really, since what, about 2016? They've been rapidly changing rules every year to try to get ahead, to try to keep up, and they really just fell behind?
Yes. No, the NCAA has been way behind. They're way behind on this too. On the message board, people are asking, what's Pat Forty's problem with Tennessee? I will tell you that a lot of media members, not just Pat Forty, and if you want to, you can say you're right by not allowing him to be hired, comes from the Greg Schiano thing. There are a lot of national media members. I'm not going to call out Pat Forty because I choose not to call out individual media members that will sit around at, let's say, SEC Media Days functions. And when the cameras aren't around, they'll say, those Tennessee fans, man, that ball Twitter, they're absolutely through the roof. So could he be one of those? He certainly could.